I'm Frank Vaughn. It's August 11th, 2025, and we have to begin today where we left off yesterday. First, I want to address the most important pressing concern, because politics sucks, and so does this blister. It's coming along just fine, Lori. But next, we have to focus on Doug Boswell. He says, you trash conservatives, and then people ask people to donate money to you. You will have better luck standing on a street corner holding out a coffee cup. Are you declaring any money that you get on your income tax? You know, I never get asked that question by liberals. It's always conservatives who are very concerned that I am paying every single penny possible to the CRA. When did conservatism become about paying taxes to the Canada Revenue Agency? But to answer his question, I would be stupid, as would any other influencer, to not declare the money they make doing videos in any form, whether they're monetized on YouTube, monetized on Twitter, any monetization whatsoever. You know why? It's digital. It, through PayPal and through e-transfers, goes right into a bank account. There's no cash. So even if I wanted to cheat, and I never have, I had a godfather. I still have a godfather. I'm not sure if he's still alive. His name was Carl Bernhardt. He was a lawyer. And he only ever gave me one piece of advice, just one. He said, Frank, always pay your taxes, and then you can do whatever you want. And I never forgot that advice. And I've watched people over time, even though they declared properly their taxes, they neglected to pay those taxes, and I watched their lives get destroyed. So I would be stupid. But why is it conservatives, and seemingly conservatives alone, are the ones that hold the CRA up like a bludgeon, trying to threaten me into silence? And the other thing that I keep getting harassed about is this donation link. I'm not monetized. I don't sell advertising. I don't do endorsements. I don't have super chats on YouTube. One of the biggest reasons I don't have super chats on YouTube is because I don't want my people paying GST. The second you raise a barrier to your content for people, it's now a service and subject to GST. That's why every time you click the super chat button, you have to pay the goods and services tax, because I do things the way that I do them, because I give everything to you up front for free. You don't have to pay GST. And furthermore, you don't have to sit through advertising. You don't have to worry that I'm being paid to say the things that I'm saying. You can choose to click a donate link, and you can choose not to. The vast majority of people who watch my content, somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 people on every single video who watch, I bet you I get a donation maybe once in every 4,000 views. Generally, it's $5 or $10, $20. If it wasn't for the generosity of less than a half dozen donors, there wouldn't even be any viability to this thing that I'm doing. When I came back to doing this is what kills me. I borrowed money to finance the time to start making content again. I'm that stupid. I care that much that I would indebt myself and my family to give myself an opportunity to give voice, to create a platform for something very different. And I got to get harassed about it? These people, this guy, you know what he's upset about? We should go through some of his posts. He's upset that I would dare criticize Canadian conservatives. That's what he's upset about. Do you realize that politics is all about money? What do politicians that don't hold office need more than anything? Money, donations, so that they can buy ads that do nothing, so that they can give speeches that do nothing. You support a multi-million-dollar junket that hasn't delivered any results, but you want to harass me for having a donate link? The single only way that I can generate revenue doing this, the way that I'm doing it. Do you realize the algorithm doesn't show people my videos? Literally, the 30,000 subs, close to 30,000 subs we have on YouTube, and the 20-odd thousand people that we have on Twitter, and I say we because it's me, but my wife and my family support my effort. I tell her, look, I want to go in debt making videos. I want to do content. I want to see if I can get involved. I want to see if I can do something to move the needle and create something different. She's like, sure, go ahead, do it. Worst case scenario, we have to pay off some debt. No problem. It's a we effort. It's also a we as in you, because I wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for word of mouth. We've never been monetized. So literally, the only way we grow is when you tell people about the video content and when you sit down and watch it. We're not getting any favors from anybody because of the way we're doing things, because of the way it's structured. And the vast majority, and I'm not harassing anybody, but the vast, vast majority, like 99.9% of people who watch my content, never donate a single dollar. And do you hear me whine about it? Do you hear me bitch about it? Do you hear me begging? I got a donate link. Am I not supposed to get paid for my time? You know, it's crazy to me. I'm out there, as I showed you 2 videos ago. I'm digging this trench and I'm trying to fix my water problem. I'm not hiring contractors. I'm pulling the shovels and the pickaxe out of the shed and I'm doing the job myself, making sure that I can take care of my house. Got the blister to show for it. The job still isn't complete because I've had to heal my hand somewhat, and it hasn't been raining, thank God. I've been blessed with a bit of a mercy, and all the rain that we had drained away from the house successfully. I still got to extend the trench and do some stuff. But I'm out there, sweating my balls off, and I'm worried. I'm literally worried about the fact that I haven't generated a video. I literally feel like I've taken a day off work, like I've called in sick and I'm some kind of scumbag, and I don't even get paid. So I have to put up with the likes of Doug Boswell? Who else does this? Who else does it this way? I do it this way so that there's a high level of trust, so that I can communicate ideas and achieve a high level of trust with my audience. Somebody said to me the other day, one of the commenters, they said, I watched one of your videos and I disagreed with what you said, so I unsubscribed. But I came back and I watch your content. And even when I disagree, I find it valuable because of whatever he said, honesty, respect, whatever it was. But it was the last line that stuck with me. And the last line was, it wasn't that I disagreed. It was that you were telling me something I didn't want to hear. There are the vast majority of content creators, left and right, are telling you what you want to hear. They're curating their message to their audience, and they're looking at the analytics all day, every day. They're checking for the likes. They're checking for the comments. They're building brands. Most of them are homers for one political party or another political party. And what does homer mean? Homer, because I use that term frequently, and people have been asking me what the hell it means. When you watch a hockey game, it's the home team announcers. So one of the biggest homers of all time, he's retired now, was the guy who used to call the Boston Bruin games. It didn't matter. Zdeno Chara or Milan Lucic could come up and just two-handed chop somebody in the back of the head, and this guy would spin it as unfair that the referee called a penalty. He was great. I loved listening to his calls. That's what a homer is. There's homers for the CPC. There's homers for the Liberal Party. They'll never tell you the truth. They're just telling you a message. They're batting for the team. I'm batting for truth. That's all I'm trying to find. I'm not saying that I own the truth. I'm not saying that I've mastered the game. I am pursuing it, and I'm trying to give you an honest message that comes right out of here, free of charge. Not a single dollar does anybody ever have to pay me, and most of you don't. And I got to put up with Doug Boswell. And just so it's not mistaken, let me read my response. So conservative of you to invoke the CRA as a veiled threat. I declare every penny, and I do. All $2,900 that I made in 2024, I declared $2,900 and change. I'm getting so filthy rich via that donate link. If I actually made enough money, if I was actually paying my bills forward, and if I was actually at an income threshold where I was starting to incur tax liability, I would generate write-offs. I'd run ads. I'd do all this stuff because I ain't looking to drive a new car. I ain't looking to get much more out of my life. I want to build this thing. Instead of getting ad revenue from YouTube, I want to pay them for digital ads so they'll actually show people my content. That's where I'd like to get to. That's my dream. Just disgust me, these guys. The way they come after you. These so-called conservatives. Here he is again. Try calling out the liberals. Unemployment up, youth unemployment up 16%, insolvency up, no trade deal with the USA, no resolution of interprovincial trade barriers, deficit increasing daily. This is a guy talking about a CPC that voted for C5, that votes with the liberals on many of these issues. And I said to him, he's obviously telling me he doesn't watch any of my content because I've talked about all those things in my videos. I've talked about the liberals. I've talked about Mark Carney. I've talked about all of it. But the single greatest thing that I'm doing wrong in the eyes of the guys like Doug Boswell is I'm also pointing out the flaws in the Conservative Party of Canada. Because I'm not a homer. I don't have a federal political membership. I'm a Poilievre voter. I went to my polling station. I voted for Pierre Poilievre. I guess it's not enough. I guess I don't get my voice. I guess I don't get to point out the fact that they lost one of the most winnable elections in history. And yes, before you say something, I've talked about the fact that it was the largest ever vote get for the Conservative Party of Canada in their history. Still wasn't enough. But they had the biggest lead, and it went away. And now we're looking at polling. And we'll get into that next. Liberal leadership has failed this country. It is clear in every conceivable way to any thinking person, but I also talk about the way mainstream conservative politics is often just a different version of the same thing. Both are true at once, and I'm honest about it, because the foreign policy of the Conservative Party of Canada and the foreign policy of the Liberal Party of Canada comes down to verbiage. When it comes to the war in Ukraine, they both support it. They both support it unendingly. They would trigger World War III and nuclear Armageddon to continue to virtue signal about Ukraine. We ain't got enough money for our Canadian military. Our men and women in uniform are suffering on bases that are toxic. They got to lift their feet when they pass over rainbow sidewalks, but then they got to sleep in mold-filled dorms. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. But we got unlimited money for that corrupt regime in Ukraine. We got unlimited support for the mass casualty event. Useless human slaughter that is the Ukraine war, and both parties love it. When it comes to the United States, I pointed out yesterday that Pierre Poilievre is basically elbows up. And people said, he never said that. But he has certainly campaigned against the Orange Man. He certainly talked about how Trump is unfair and bad. In a recent tweet, he said, the best trade deal for Canada is the one where the U.S. doesn't charge us any tariffs. And once again, just like the mainstream media, just like the Liberal Party, just like everybody else in this conversation, nobody ever tells the story about the fact that Canada's charging tariffs out the wazoo. One of the most expensive countries to deal with in the world is Canada. So his definition of fair is the U.S. doesn't charge anything, but we get to continue to charge ours? That ain't fair at all. It's more of the same. And it's unrealistic, just as unrealistic as the elbows up liberal position. And so what do they say to me? They say, if Pierre Poilievre was prime minister, we'd have a deal with Trump already. It's imagination. It's pure fantasy. They defend something that didn't happen. Again, Doug Boswell, how about criticizing the Liberals and their systemic destruction of Canada since 2015? I've been doing that, Doug. I ran in a federal election in 2019 doing that. What have you done? Conservatives were in power? Then you would have a valid claim. My response, you don't think the CPC, prior to 2015, did their part weakening this nation? Do you think the Trans-Pacific Partnership was a good deal for Canada? I still have a valid claim. The CPC lost the most winnable election in Canadian history because of bad judgments, like yours. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, which, by the way, for all of those people in the comments section who are talking about the PPC is the only option, Maxime Bernier, when he campaigned in 2017, was so proud of how he helped deliver the Trans-Pacific Partnership to Canada and criticized Justin Trudeau for not finalizing a free trade agreement with China where their capital, unlimited, would be poured into Canada, buying up assets all over this country. The CPC, make no mistake, absolutely loved getting in bed with communist China. They opened the door and the Liberals kicked it wide open. Both those things are true at the same time. Doug, it's incredible. And I mean, look at the results. Check out this guy, Stephen Corrigan. The polls I read have us in pretty solid territory and gaining. Mr. Poilievre isn't even back in the House of Commons yet. Let's wait and see what happens here. And I said, they're doing great for sure. Absolutely fantastic. The CPC, man, they're just right on the main trajectory, and you understand what's happening here in Canada, folks, if things don't change. Jagmeet Singh led the NDP into total ruin and disaster. They're broke, they're destitute, they've had to sell off their assets, they borrowed money heavily so that he could uselessly campaign around the country. He's been reduced, the NDP, under his leadership, reduced him to an attack dog for Carney. All you had to do was watch the debates. It was incredible. Every time Poilievre opened his mouth, Jagmeet Singh started barking. But whenever Carney talked, Jagmeet was silent. I'm willing to bet, and I don't know this, but I'm willing to bet that there was a silent deal negotiated in the background where Jagmeet Singh was Carney's attack dog, where there was the expectation that he would go hard after Poilievre. And what did Poilievre do? Talking points. He looked at the camera and he smiled and he repeated talking points. The best form of Poilievre was the apple-eating Poilievre, the guy who was off the cuff, spoke from the heart, and led. Somehow, between the apple eating and the election, he lost his ability to lead. Whether it's Jenny Byrne or some other advisor at the CPC, it always seems to happen. When they're in a commanding position because of leadership showing its ugly face in politics, advisors come along and polls come along and they soften their message and they shell up and they pull inside their shell and they just try to hang on as best they can. Because if they hang on just enough, they'll win. And guess what? They lost. The talking points don't work. Now, I get it. I know what's going on here. I wasn't born yesterday. You're catering to a TV audience. The demographic grouping that votes in the largest numbers in this country are the boomers. The boomers shape our politics. The liberals and the conservatives both chase that voting bloc. The conservatives have got everybody else locked up, but not the boomers. So when Poilievre looked at the camera and repeated his soft-spoken talking points, he was trying to convince boomers that he wasn't like Trump, that he was a good guy, and he wouldn't just give the country up to the United States of America. And it didn't work. Because the media that controls the televisions, which the boomers are sitting in front of, and I'm saying the boomers, I get it. There are millions of boomers that this description does not fit. So hear that portion well. To you, I am not speaking. I'm speaking to the rest that get their information diet from solely the television and the radio. I've witnessed this myself. I was at a seniors' home years ago. I don't know if it might have been the 2015 election. Advanced voting was open. Buses roll up to the senior home, load everybody on the bus, take them to the polling station so that they can vote. And inside that senior's home, that retirement home, is nothing but TVs. Wall-to-wall TVs. And everybody's glued to it. The Liberal Party of Canada, not just funding the CBC, but funding every single mainstream news outlet in this country. Millions of dollars subsidizing the media. Control what goes on those television sets. That's how their worldview is framed. They have created an irrational fear of Trump. They have married the idea of Donald Trump and the United States together as though they're the same thing, and they've done it for very short-sighted aims. Trying to win elections, not building a future country, not building a future for Canada as a cohesive unit. Literally just winning seats. And at this point, that control of that layer of propaganda has enabled Carney to come from Europe, to come from New York. And when I say New York, I don't mean America. I mean the United Nations. I mean the international organizations. He came here. He parachuted in. There's video of him very clearly that won't make its way on TV, where he describes himself as a European. Never talked about himself as a Canadian. Never talked about his roots in Alberta and all the other nonsense that came with him when he came back to Canada. This man who worked for Brookfield, a man whose entire career is dedicated, as Doug asked me about the CRA, is dedicated to structuring people's investments so that they don't have to pay tax. He's a wealth man. He's a central banker. And he's here to carve this country up and give it away to other stronger interests in the world, be they China or European or, dare I say, American. At this stage in Canadian history, this notion of Canadian sovereignty, we're so far removed from it because for 40 years, no matter who was in power, we have given it away and given it away and given it away. Every now and again, the flag gets hauled out, dusted off, and they wave it around a bit. It's incredible to me. 2022, the Freedom Convoy, draped in Canadian flags. A grassroots. They talk about Tamara Lich and they talk about the people who are on trial as leaders of the movement. The movement was organic. People were fed up, and it was draped in the Canadian flag. Back then, they were telling us that Canadian flags were a sign of radicalism, a sign of extremism. Anybody flying a Canadian flag was suspect, and people who watched those TVs would see a Canadian flag and have cause for suspicion about the intent of the person flying it. Fast forward to 2024 and 2025, now the flag's back, baby. Canada's back. And the people who have destroyed this country are the ones declaring that Canada is back. All of a sudden, the nature of advertising has changed. All of a sudden, old Canada is something to be celebrated again for a little while. And then it'll be put down and put away again. Canadian sovereignty, for what it's worth, is an artifact of the past. It's very difficult for me to visualize a pathway where Canada becomes strong and sovereign again. I've seen video. And maybe I'll save it for tomorrow. Maybe I won't. Actually, yeah, maybe I won't. Let's just check out Just Bins here. Just Bins, if you don't know who Just Bins is a company that sells garbage bins, but also does some incredible coverage of things that are happening here in Canada. Check this out. This is right here in Saskatchewan. These are the new Canadians. This is the sovereignty that the Conservative Party, who raised immigration levels in this country to record levels and enabled the Liberals to push it even further. These are our Khalistani extremists. These are our new Canadians driving around with firearms in rural Saskatchewan. Isn't it fantastic? So much so, and guess what? Only the First Nations could get away with this. The Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations is issuing an urgent public safety advisory to all our First Nation citizens, leadership, and community organizers across Saskatchewan in response to reports of troubling incidents that pose a potential threat to the safety of First Nations women. In recent weeks, we have received credible information from community members and frontline service workers about aggressive encounters involving individuals from outside our nations. These incidents have included verbal harassment, stalking behavior, and intimidations. And somewhere in here, they refer to these people as foreigners. Only the First Nations could get away with calling anybody a foreigner in this country. Now, of course, the TV that we were talking about will completely ignore this information. They will not publicize this information. They won't tell you about it. We have an extremism crime. It's not just Khalistanis. We have Eritrean crime networks. We got Chinese triads. I've covered on my channel for the Doug Boswicks of the world how Canada has become a northern narco state. I don't just say it. I put the receipts together. I spend the hours free of charge. Hours of my time putting it together. Not just making things up, but showing you international organizations highlighting the fact that Canada is a money laundering and drug trafficking capital to the world. And the only people who don't seem to know it are the Canadian citizens who are glued to that TV. You go on public transit and you're tripping over addicts everywhere. Crime is out of control. And somehow you can't see it. That it's systemic. That it's desired. That it's an outcome they want. 80% of Australian methamphetamine comes right from Canada. For those of you who don't know, Australia's on the other side of the planet. How does a situation like that come to be? Trump talks about fentanyl being a problem coming from Canada. He is correct. The Sinaloa cartel operates through the Port of Vancouver, not just the triads. We know this. The RCMP has said it. I've shown it in my videos. If I could just get people to watch inconvenient truths that neither the Liberal Party of Canada nor the Conservative Party of Canada want to tackle. The thing is, if the Conservative Party wanted to do it, if a provincial leader wanted to do it, they actually have the ability to break the silence. They can call press conferences and the national media will broadcast them, and they could be telling the same stories that I'm telling or that others like Sam Cooper and others are telling. They could do it and get it on TV, and they could start to change the conversation. They could use their positions and actually lead, show people the truth. And they don't. And the homers just make excuses for it. The path to becoming an outlaw in Nova Scotia. Just walking in the park. Something else. What did I do with it? What did I do? This one. Saskatchewan volunteer firefighter who set 30 fires in a month sentenced for arson. This was just July 22nd. Logan Seibin sentenced to 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service for actually setting 30 fires. Not a single day's jail time. He's out. He can set fires again if he wants to. He didn't get a $28,000 fine for walking in a park. This is Canada. It sucks. Where in Canada, outside of useless talking points, is there someone in a political position, in a position of power, saying that Canadians deserve a better deal, that they deserve better than this? Some might say they deserve it, but they don't want to give you an elected Senate. They don't even want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about getting rid of equalization. When provinces have finally had enough and the people, there's an upswell of people wanting independence, of wanting to get out of this rotten system, out of this rotten deal, like in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Pierre Poilievre comes to the heart of Alberta to run in an election and tells everybody there that it's better in Canada than without Canada. And Daniel Smith goes on a tour doing the Alberta Next thing, but it's always framed within the Federation. They double down on it. They double down on the chains. They double down on the prison. No one talks about getting rid of equalization. No one talks about an elected Senate. No one talks about creating a right of recall. I covered on this channel before how it's been proven in a court of law that when a politician promises you the world during an election campaign, and they actually don't, they promise you very little. Mark Carney ran one of the most honest campaigns I've ever seen in my life. He promised doom and gloom and destruction and emergencies unending. Like it was one of the most negative campaigns I ever seen, and he won on it. Olivia Chow and Tim Houston, buddies they are, stand in front of CCAN homes and are proud to say that after 45 years in the workforce, you can look forward to being stuffed in a CCAN to live out the rest of your days. They stand in front of it. They campaign in front of it, and they win elections. I mean, it's unreal. Only in Canada. But back to the point. No citizen referendums, no right of recall, no responsibility to politicians. Justin Trudeau is found by official processes to have violated your fundamental constitutional rights, to have suspended the charter, invoking the Emergencies Act to get rid of the Freedom Convoy. He was wrong. He was found judiciously to be wrong. Not a single person faced any accountability. The charter is supposed to be the highest law in the land, the most sacred secular document that we have, and the government can dispense with it on a whim, be found to have wrongly done so, and never once face responsibility, face accountability. That's Canada. It stinks. And there's not a single political leader who says, I think the Canadian people who are overtaxed, overburdened, who have declining services from healthcare to education. Education's more concerned about teaching your kids that they can have sex changes in the Rainbow Brigade than they are about actually teaching them life skills. It's all about, it's more and more about ideology and less about critical thinking and teaching your kids how to learn and be properly functional human beings. Declining services across the board. The best they can come up with is, it needs more funding. No one wants to just tell you the truth. It's a rotten deal. Canadians, some of the most overtaxed people on earth, deserve better. I say it. And I get attacked for having a donate link. I'll finish with this. There was an individual, a leftist, complete with the Ukraine emotes, flags in their bio. Their name was something like Greta Thunberg is a generational hero, some nonsense like that. And, they come at me as a right-wing extremist, even though I don't have a political membership, even though I'm not represented by any party. And I said to her, when it comes to a low-carbon lifestyle, almost nobody knows as good as I do what that's all about. I ran an organic farm for many years, claiming every dollar, Doug. Not even claiming every expense. I mean, shit. When it comes to an expense that's questionable, I never claimed a percentage of my house for home office deductions. I figured, hell with it. I'll listen to my godfather. I'll pay them more than they deserve so that I can just live my life. I ran an organic farm, 5 acres. It grew to 5 acres for well over a decade, close to 2 decades. That was my life. I grew an amount of food and produce that can be measured in the tons. I don't know how many tons, but tonnage of stuff, burning less than 100 liters of diesel fuel a year. And I took it to local markets and I sold it locally. I did localism. I did low carbon living. And I can tell you one thing. I can tell you something, Doug. I can tell you something, Greta. I can tell anybody that wants to talk about this lifestyle. You ain't cut for it. Working with your hands, pulling carrot. Do these people even understand what weeding carrots is all about? Hoeing days on end, covered in sweat you can't even see. You don't have a single dry patch on your clothing to wipe your glasses off. So you just have to look through the sweat. You got deer flies coming after you. Mosquitoes, if the clouds come in. You know what I learned about deer flies? You can kill any deer fly, but it can't know you're coming for it. You have to see them out of your periphery, and you have to get real good at swatting them. And you can't let them know that you're coming. And if you kill somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 12 of them, half dozen to a dozen of them, you're either working through the population or the rest get the message and they're like, don't screw with this guy. And they leave you alone for the rest of the day. You only learn stuff like that by being in it and doing it. You got calluses on calluses up at 4:30 in the morning so that you can get to market on time and then come home and go back to work. I lived the low carbon lifestyle. I lived it. That farm was organic. Didn't use even the organic sprays. We relied on biodiversity to actually make everything work. Some years you lose a crop, but you'll get back in other places. You just accepted that the bugs were going to take what they took and the crows were going to take what they took. And that's what we did. People criticize me. You don't know half of what I've done. And you know that lifestyle was so much simpler than what I'm doing now. It was harder work, but it was so much easier than trying to communicate with the Dougs of the world. It's like throwing myself at a wall. Every kind of criticism. They pick on my kids. They pick on my wife. They pick on my family. They pick on me. They try to poke holes in my character. They have no idea how resilient I actually am and how little it means. I mean, every single day someone says, how's it feel knowing you're nothing? And it's usually some account, no offense to anybody out there who's in the same boat, but actually has a modicum of respect. Some account with 20 followers. And it's like, if I'm nothing, what are you? Everything we've got, we've earned the hard way. You couldn't do content creation any harder than what we're doing. And so for all of those, and there's a lot of them, people who've tried to help me out, Clyde, do something. A lot of people have talked trash to me because I talked to Clyde. He's treated me good. Wyatt Claypool over at the National Telegraph. He's treated me good the entire time. They're always there with the advice. Man, you got to monetize. You got to do things a certain way. And their advice is sound. And I've resisted all of it. I want to do this way. I want to do this way so that when the Dougs come along, I can dismiss them out of hand. I can address them directly in a way that is unassailable. I'm literally just trying to do the right thing. I'm Frank Vaughn, and we'll see how it goes, but hopefully tomorrow I can talk to you about more substantive things. But I just thought, I needed to clear the air a little bit. I'll see you in the next one.